Good evening, everyone. So happy that you're here. I'm not going to go over the house rules. Someone else will do that. But I'm simply going to say welcome. And we're so happy that you're here. Anytime we get community involvement in decision making, it's a wonderful thing. So I'm very excited to have you here. I'm Randall O'Brien, the superintendent of schools, if you don't know me. And thought we might have a board member walk in a little late. Ms. Woods is in Houston, had an appointment in Houston today, and we all know the Houston track. She may or may not pop her head in here in just a moment, but she also wanted to greet you and thank you for your time. And wanted to make sure everyone got signed in and everyone got their shirt, if you want a shirt, and just to basically represent and Goose Creek, and make sure you fill out your W-2 form so that we get your paycheck in the mail. Oh wait, y'all aren't getting paid for this. Y'all actually signed up and volunteered to be here? Are you kidding me? Free of charge to bring your expertise into the room and share with us? No, you might get a snack or two here or there and a shirt or two here or there. But more than anything, you have my gratitude as your superintendent that you care enough to be here. Some school districts, and I don't mind sharing this with you, I've worked in a few, have what's called apathy. And they don't have a lot of community engagement. And I can say, going on year 8, can't believe it's going on year 8 here, I've never been involved with a school district that had this much community engagement. So I was not surprised when we had over 150 applicants for this, to be in this room here tonight. I think you will notice that everyone's spaced accordingly, appropriately. If you get stationed at your seat and you're comfortable doing so, you may remove your mask. And once again, I don't want to go over the field, but if you get up from your seat and leave it, we appreciate if you put your mask back on. As you know, that's one of the conditions of being here, is to keep us all safe as well, everyone in this room. So please honor that, if you will. And outside of that, Ms. Woods just wanted me to convey to you her gratitude and thanks, and share with you that it's a difficult thing to select community members when you have a large pool. Some board members had only 10 and they had to choose 6, so only 4 people didn't get selected. Some had 20 or more. And so they really had a hard time narrowing down the field. And it wasn't, I don't think, any kind of score or ranking. It was just familiarity, maybe hearing the name before, having heard your name on maybe some social media input or some email input and or newspaper input. We want to have the people that are the most invested in this project here in the room, and we're happy to have you here as one of those people. I have been the superintendent here now. My first year was a deputy, and from there on became superintendent. I wanted to share this with you that in either my first or second year as superintendent, I'm going to Region 4, which is a large conference building over at Tidwell and 290, and there are 50 superintendents for the greater Houston region. And when you're the new guy on the block, you kind of, you're trying to get to know people, and you're not sure if you fit in with them or their ideology and those types of things. All I know is I work very, very hard to get it right, try to do the best job that I can as your superintendent. But when you're going to meet with other people that have been doing it for 10 years, 20 years, and it's really eye-opening to me to get to. And I had this pleasure one day. I was sitting at a table with another gentleman, and we were talking, and I was sharing with him that, it's kind of new to me, this larger district. I've worked in Conroe and Willis and Montgomery, but really, this is my largest district to lead. And I was sharing that with him, and he just happened to be the superintendent, Katy ISD, 2 or 3 times the size of us, and he kind of said, "Oh, it'll be fine. That's a wonderful community." I said, "It is? It is?" And he says, "Yes, it is." I said, "How do you know?" And it's because he worked here. And his name is Mr. Alton Fraley, your presenter this evening. I want to introduce him to you, and he'll introduce himself a little bit more. But that was how I met. Wasn't that a cool thing, just to sit down at a table and have the guy across to give you reassurances that I'm going to be all right, that Baytown's a wonderful place to be, Highlands Tech's a wonderful place, and I'm going to be okay leaving this district because the community is invested. And the reason he knew it because he spent time here as an employee of the district. And so I'll let him tell you the rest of that story. But we're so honored to have Mr. Alton Fraley here. He, upon retiring, his last few years there at Katy, he got involved at the national level. I've heard him speak, I believe it was in Denver, Colorado, at a National Assembly of Superintendents, and he has a vision for what a school system should be and the commitment level that we should all have to support our teachers as they provide the education for our kiddos. So again, I'm extremely grateful to serve as your superintendent of schools and happy to have you here this evening. And I'm excited to hear of the findings of this committee. I actually am going to share with you, I'm leaving, so speak freely about the superintendent if you wish. But I'm leaving to sort of honor your privacy and open dialogue and conversations. Mr. Fraley will share more with you about that as we get going here. Did I have any other introductions? You know our team here, but Mr. Fraley, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dr. O'Brien. Good evening, everyone. Very excited to be here. Well, I am actually. I've been going for quite a while. I began my career here in Baytown, Goose Creek, as a teacher at Highlands Elementary in 19-something. And I was there for 4.5 years. I became assistant principal at Lamar Elementary. While at Lamar, I met a young lady who was being work here as a psychologist at San Jacinto Elementary. And 30 years later, we're still married. Still married. She worked with Robin Stern over there. They go way back. I'll tell you, said, hey, I see some names down here. There's a woman from the Baytown Sun, years gone by. And Brother Osteen, which is a big name in Baytown. And if I don't recognize other folks, I've lost my hair and gained a stomach. I lost my memory as well. I want to thank Goose Creek for inviting me to come back and work with you all in this endeavor. My voice, I've had a couple of medical procedures this year, so my voice has gone from very white to I don't know who. And it may go to Michael Jackson. It may just disappear. If I become Dolly Parton, just Parton. Okay? So here you go again. But at any rate, I want to thank Mr. Bowyer for working with me and Dr. McCall. We have worked together years past at other places, and we're excited about that work. So we'll get started. Thank you all. That was very important to have that exercise. Kind of all we have in the room. A very qualified group of representatives of the community to participate in this conversation. We have a hard stop at 7 to bring someone in on the screen. And so wherever we are, we're going to stop right before that because we need to log on and go take a break as well. I'm going to go through a few things that you have in your packet, so I'm not going to linger on it. I'll just go through real quickly. First, I want to ask you to agree or disagree. The life and work of the community should contribute in every possible way to physical, mental, emotional health of every student. Agree with that? Also because it's part of your mission statement, Goose Creek State. And when we talk about atmosphere, the environment that we're going to have our kids working in, that's very important because it's a particular environment or surrounding influence. So as I quickly go through some documents from the district, all the words in blue represent atmosphere. Atmosphere. Many of you talk about atmospheric conditions being very positive here in Goose Creek. So any child, based on your history of success, can succeed here. Every child that doesn't, you will explore why in the strategic plan. This is your mission. Intellectual, social, emotional well-being, highly qualified team committed, all this atmospheric stuff. Innovation, success, and determination. Vision, want to empower every student with the knowledge and skills they need. Empower every student. Not just go through it, but really empower every student. Instructional must-haves, and vision. Your classroom will create a learning experience. Create a learning experience. Every student, every day. Every classroom will provide relevant, meaningful, and connected curriculum, equitable, rigor, all those things in blue. These are all documents that I think they're in your packet, and I will make sure you get it before you leave, because it's part of the charge and part of the committee's work. Our purpose that we'll go through later on again is to consider facility names and meaningful and civil discourse, or the atmosphere again. We want your community input and feedback, and I think this group is very diverse and provide that at a very, very high level. We really appreciate that. And normally I'll move among you, but I'm going to socially distance with the mask off and not block the view of this. So I'd really rather be out there with you. Scope of work is to analyze information regarding facilities. We got some history already. We'll get more history as we have our conversation amongst ourselves about the names of facilities. And all this must be concluded by February 2021. So the school board has asked us to do. So we're going to be pushing pretty hard and we'll get there. Community expectations, committed to education of, let me say, each student. All is kind of still general. Each student. Deliverables, the outcomes. We want to have any schools that we should consider for renaming, all the way down to no action at all. So you'll see this more. This is one of the outcomes, one of the deliverables. Facility names, and have a conversation about one to name some, rename none, or what. That is what this work will entail. We'll have a little history later on, again, about the names of the schools, and why we would consider making any changes, and which facilities, if any, would be considered. Is it schools only, but facilities, or what? For the positives, for the negatives, is there a cost? The overall impact, students and staff regarding building name. I would ask us to have these team agreements for our atmosphere in here. And that one is that we honor the charge, still on topic. Just stay with the positive presupposition. We just believe that everyone means well. Everyone means well. Share the time. Just for respect, and I heard this a lot. Keep community students as a priority. And if when you come back next week, if there are others we need, get those schools as well. I love history as well, and I love the Old West. I love the story about the founding and the growth of this country. One of the things that I learned is that when folks moved west, wagon train or whatever, and found a town, typically, the first public building they would construct their church. And there were expectations about behavior of the folks at the church, those who came to visit, those who preacher. You had a barber up, your church going clothes. Everything you did associated with this building, was to have it treated in a holy manner as a sanctuary. High expectation and respect for the place we call a church. And typically the second public building, now the second building may have been a saloon, but the second public building built by the town was a school. You notice they look a lot alike, physically. And you know what? They also have the same expectations of regard, expectations of behavior. You had your school clothes, your play clothes. They were different. That's what towns did. And way back when you had Goose Creek, the Penny, and Baytown, and Highland, all these folks, they wanted a school they could be proud of. They probably didn't expect to have as many schools as we have now. I love old church, old courthouses uptown. There's something about old historic courthouses I like as well, which is again another public building built by the town. And what Michelangelo, the author of this book, talks about is that civilizations define themselves by their accomplishments, and few are more expressive than the civic architecture. Not only the building itself, but the name you put on it says something about the town. It says something about the atmospheric conditions. The public building speaks to the economic power, cultural maturity, and lawfulness of a people. The school board has reached out to this community because they understand this quote here. Public sentiment is everything. With it, anything it's awesome. But against it, nothing is possible. So taking the time to ascertain public sentiment is a very critical step in important role of this community, because these schools belong to you. These are your schools, these are your facilities. And they're there for a purpose. And that's spelled out in your mission and your vision. So everything we talk about, please keep that in mind. I love history, and if the history we're talking about is helping our children, it's on the table. If it's just to reflect, but it's time to move us forward, we'll need to consider that. And Jamie Vaughn, who's become a personal friend of mine, has this quote about, is the school system a leading or lagging indicator? So what I've learned is that school systems tend to go where the community is going to be. They would say if you find a good school, you find a good community. Actually, it's going to be honest. You find a good community, you find a good school. The National Civic League talks about communities need to let things happen or they can make things happen. And they make things happen by producing a vision, a shared articulation of their desires for the future of the town, of the community. And then they employ a process that helps them achieve their goals. And part of that process is this conversation, right? Because the topic of school facility names has come up. And the board was wise not jumping out there giving it pressure, taking their time to have a conversation so that the public sentiment is leading the way. Be informed of public sentiment. And I've learned this, that when you change the way you look at things, things change where they look. The typical ending of this statement is what? Grass is always greener where? On the other side. That's conventional thinking. Informed thinking, grass is greener where you water it. When you change the way you look at things. And how do you make that happen? Well, you'll learn what it takes to grow good grass. So looking at across the fence, now I grew up on a farm where cows will always stretch their necks through the barbed wire to get the grass. But if we can make it sweet on our side, we're less likely to do that. And everything we do begins with our beliefs. Everything we do begins with our beliefs. The most popular radio station in the world, station WIIFM, was In It For Me. Don't apologize, don't feel guilty. You're normal. You're normal. But when we can align our wisdom with public sentiment and shared aspiration, that's where the power is. That's where the power is. Some folks say, I'm just telling you like it is. Is it like it is, or like you see it? Depends on where you stand. You can argue all day long about this, but then change sides. Because from the other side right now and then. And what might be seen. And our respect for community, you must maintain order while you're talking about change. And you must continue pushing through the change while trying to maintain order, if that's what you so desire. I don't like the word change. I like to talk about developing shared aspiration, a shared vision, and then becoming. Let's not take this conversation and just put it, compartmentalize it. This can truly become the start of something big here at Goose Creek. This conversation is not like a bond referendum. I've been on lots of bond committees, I've done lots of bonds with $3 billion worth. This is not that. This is how we want to be going forward. What we want to do with our children, go for our children. And right now, I want you to feel that you are a critical piece of this puzzle. You are a critical piece of the puzzle. We're bringing the best that you have to this conversation. And before we go next, Matt, if we make a stop, we'll pick back up with you guys, all right? So, deliverables, the outcomes, answer these questions. Again, with the first question. And folks, here is Matt. Volume.
Okay, thank you. So there's a few of us from Goose Creek who are support staff, and so I want to do a real quick introduction and walk you through some of our materials. So I'm Matt Bollinger. I'm the Executive Director of Strategic Planning. I also went to Travis and Baytown Junior and graduated from Lee High School in '92. So proud graduate of Lee, and glad glad to be here with you guys tonight. Also, we have Dr. Demetrius McCall. He's our Deputy Superintendent, and he will be sharing with us. And then who's not here is Christy Leith. She's our Director of Advanced Academics, and so the three of us have been working together on the support piece for this project, and she had a personal matter tonight, but she should be at our next meeting. We also have our communications department over here, and so I want to give, if we can, give them a hand. They set up everything today with the materials. We're going to go through this pretty quickly because I know we're a little bit behind, and some of this you've seen if you've been following the board members' board meetings, but we just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. So the purpose of this committee is to form a committee to research and discuss district facility names. And so this committee is going to investigate the implications of naming a school facility and then also address key questions regarding facility names. So that's the purpose of our meetings that we'll have over the next few months. One thing that we shared with the board, what the committee is and what the committee is not. And so we think this is important to point out. Our committee here is a group of individuals who will engage in key questions regarding facility names. And so you've seen those questions, hopefully, in previous presentations. If not, we're going to share those here in a second. Also, the committee is tasked with reviewing data, having meaningful discussion, and then giving feedback to the board. And so that's the purpose for this committee. What the committee is not, you are not, I'm not part of the committee, you are not the ultimate decision maker. And so if there's a decision that's made from this committee, it will be in the form of a recommendation to the board. So we want to make sure that that's important, that the ultimate decision makers are the school board. They have asked for public feedback in the form of a committee. And so that's why we're here today. We will have conversation, discussion, and then provide that feedback to the board. And then also, I think it's important to say this committee is not tasked with changing the minds of others regarding a facility name change. We know this is a very emotional topic. We know that it's a very volatile topic, and that we have very different opinions in this room. And so, but regardless, we know that we're from the same community. And that's why it's important that even though we don't have the same opinion or the same voice, that we hear one another and move forward as a team. So that's ideally the goal. Dr. McCall is going to talk to us a little bit about proposed key questions that you've been asked to address.
So these proposed key questions were submitted to our school board a few months back, and of course there have been some modifications to it, some revisions to it to make sure that it really defines the work over the next couple of months. And so those questions are as follows. How were facilities originally named in Goose Creek? Why would we consider renaming a facility? Which facilities would need to be considered for renaming at this time? And which facility names need to be either not considered or potentially delayed? Are there positives for changing the name of a facility? Are there negatives for changing the name of a facility? What are the cost implications for changing the name of a high school facility, and also looking at elementary as well as our junior schools? And what is the impact of students and staff regarding a building name? What is in the best interest of our students? And you will see that time and time again, and I know we've said that quite a few times this evening, but we really want to keep that at the forefront of the recommendation that will go to the board.
Okay, and also as mentioned, we do have district representation, and we'll probably bring additional district staff as needed based off what the committee requests. And so if there's some financial information that's being requested or some facility design information, then we will make sure that we get that information for you. Few housekeeping items. You should have received a pocket folder, and so we want to take a few minutes just to go through this real quick. A pocket folder, then you also have a facilities vision guide, which Dr. McCall will walk us through here in a second real quick. But in the pocket folder, if you'll go through the items, I just want to make sure that you're aware of what's in here. First of all, the committee charter that the board approved is in the pocket folder, and I believe that's on the right side. So it's towards the back, but that's the charter. So basically that's the scope of work for this committee. So that's important to note. On the left side, you have scratch paper in the back, so if you want to take notes, and we're asking you to bring this pocket folder for each meeting, so each time you can bring this. And then also the guidelines are on the left side. So the guidelines are basically the guidelines, the rules, the expectations for the committee and how we will operate. Also, there's a committee member contract, and we are asking all committee members to read this and sign this document tonight. And if, I think we're going to have a break here in a second, or a quick pause while we set up technology. And so if you can read through that and then sign that and leave it on your table, we'll pick this up here in a little bit. I do want to spend just a little time on this because we believe it's important. We are asking each committee member to agree to the following: to engage in meaningful and civil discourse with each other, to follow the guidelines. We feel like it's important to not disparage, defame, or slander other committee members during meetings or in public. And the reason why we brought that up is just because we know that social media can be a beast, and we know that certain things can be put out there that you can't take back. And so we're asking for everyone on the committee to be professional and to conduct themselves in that manner. On that next bullet, I will not take photographs, video record, or audio record without any personal device. We do want to let you know that based off of board feedback, we are audio recording this meeting. We're not video recording the meeting. We do have audio recording, and that will be available on our website. So we're asking for you not to do that because we do want to have some conversation that we will engage in throughout the course of this work. However, with permission, it means that if you would like to take a picture of the slides, that would be just fine. So if you're interested in doing that, absolutely. What we're trying to balance honoring the process, but also with transparency. So there's a lot of individuals who were not selected to be on this committee, and they are interested in the conversation of what's being presented, and if we're presenting a fair and balanced demonstration. And so our goal is to make sure that we have that transparency piece, but also we want to make sure that as we go through the process, we honor that process. And so based off of board feedback, it was decided to have audio recording of the presentations. And so if we have sidebar conversations, that probably will be picked up. It's basically the presentation piece on the microphone. And that's the transparency side of it that we want to make sure we honor. And then the other side is protecting the process. And so I know not everyone agrees with that, but that was the decision that was made. Yes, it has been considered. And we know that, again, that's why it was decided to be audio recorded and not video recorded. And we know that that's the thing that we're concerned about. We want to make sure that for you, that there's a safety element as well, that no one defames you. And so that's why we're not using names throughout the process. But I will tell you that we've gone back and forth on what to do. And so the decision, based off the board feedback, was to do the audio recording. It will be posted a few days after the meeting. So we're not waiting until the very end to post all the meetings. We're posting it about 2 or 3 days after the meeting on the website. And I'll tell you that again, that was based on the board feedback. That was a decision that was made. And throughout the process, again, we're balancing being transparent in what we're providing to the committee, and also we're balancing protecting the safety of the needs of the committee. We set up the guidelines ahead of time, and I'll tell you that part of being on this committee is your willingness to be a part of the process. Like, for example, there was a public information request made to get committee members' names. Now our school attorney is reviewing that process to see if that's being permitted or not. That's what we're required to do, and so we're in the process of identifying that. But that is part of what you're signing up for. So if it's something that you don't feel comfortable with being on this committee, then you're able to dismiss yourself because that's how it was set up to begin with.
Let me offer this. What if this information, here's Dr. O'Brien, the board president, said that we'll consider that for the sake of when this actually posted. Maybe we'll do some work on that. We're just going to go back and repose the question again. Or start once we issue.
Yes. So the primary recording piece is the way that we understand it is the presentation piece. And so when Alton Fraley is providing a presentation over the microphone, that's what's being recorded. And so if we're having committee discussion, then we don't necessarily have to provide that out there, again, for the safety of the committee members. So it's the presentation piece, like the part that we're doing right now will be the part that's being put out on the, so from now on, we could pass the mic around and someone has a question. So we're asking you to abide by this, and it says on the last statement, where I understand that I may be removed from this committee if I'm not able to adhere to this contract. And so Goose Creek administration, if there's an issue where we need to address it, we'll address it case by case. Okay, I think we've hit everything on the contract. So if you can, when you get a chance, sign that and then we'll pick that up. Okay? And thank you for your questions. And again, I know that there's a lot of things that we are working through. This is not a traditional committee, and so it's our first time to learn, how to navigate these waters. And so we appreciate the feedback, and we can make adjustments as needed based off of what we're allowed to do. Okay, I think we've covered everything in the pocket folder. We do want to show you one more thing real quick. We have a facilities vision guide that was created for the district and for the board. And so Dr. McCall is going to talk a little bit about this document.
So the purpose of this document, and just so that you know, I know some of you have already been looking through it, the Facilities Vision Guide was created by the Communications Department as well as with the support of Mr. Bollinger here. And so the purpose of this document was to provide a historical perspective about the facilities in the school district, as well as highlight each building in the district with the narrative, specifications, and of course images. Give insight regarding the design, location, architecture, timing, and naming of each facility, and provide a roadmap for future consideration of district facilities. And so this guide will give information not only about our current facilities, but also about future facilities. So if you look on page 3, there's our prologue there, and it gives you the history of Goose Creek. And so for our historians here, I'm pretty sure you'll find that of interest to you. Also about the district, just some general information about us and where we were and where we are. And then of course our mission and vision, which we discussed a little bit earlier in the presentation today. If you look at the facilities at a glance page, and this is on page 6, and by the way, this is yours to keep, and so you can certainly look through this in greater detail on your personal time. But when you look at facilities at a glance, starting on page 6, you will see all of our facilities there in alphabetical order, elementary, junior school to high school, and then some of our other facilities in the district, and it'll also give you the page number where you can find the information. So our elementary facilities will start on page 13, and what you will see as an example, we have Stephen F. Austin Elementary. You will see some origins information about the school. You'll also see some information about its location, just general facts about the school that really makes it unique as far as the school name, and just who was the architect that designed the school, what year was the school built, any sort of historical information that would be of interest in particular to this committee. But I also find it just good information to know and just another opportunity to learn more about Goose Creek. Secondary facilities, same format, but it starts on page 47. So you will find the same information starting there with our secondary facilities. That starts with our junior schools, our comprehensive high school. We're currently in our early college high school, and so you'll find information about all of our secondary facilities there. Auxiliary facilities start on page 73. That's where you'll find information about our transportation center, our FMC, which is our facilities maintenance and construction building. All of those facilities are listed there as well, giving information there, so you'll know exactly all the operations that happen in our district and our facilities that are in district. So as you're riding by, you'll be able to recognize all of our facilities. And then for our future facilities, we're really excited about where we're going as a school district. As you know, we just recently finished a renovation on our new Education Service Center, which was the old hospital administration building. Also, we just recently did a groundbreaking ceremony for the new San Jacinto Elementary, which is not too far from here, E.F. Green Junior School, and in some of our facilities that are coming on board within the next couple of years. So that just gives you a glance into the future and where we're going. And so just a great reference tool to have, not only for this work, but also just to become more familiar with where the district is going from a facility standpoint. I'm sorry, any questions about the facilities vision? Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a quick health break, about 5 or 6 minutes or so before we get the next part lined up, all right? So about 5 or 6 minutes.
We do have snacks and drinks over here on the left, and then the restrooms are right back here. Men or women restrooms back there.
Okay, let me invite you back. Let me invite you back. During my presentation, I talked about mental models. We saw that concentric circle. Everything begins in the middle, and everything emanates from the way we look at things, the way our perspective leads us. We have an exercise now that we're going to take you through with the company out of Canada, a thought exchange. Your good friend Laura Mills on the screen. Hey Laura, good to see you. She is in Vancouver, is it Vancouver?
Vancouver Island,
Oh,
in the
Vancouver.
rain.
Yeah, Vancouver Island, which is near Victoria. We honeymooned in Victoria, Vancouver, Victoria, back a few years ago. So Laura, I'm going to let you kind of walk them through the steps. This is how we actually bring your devices. Does anyone need to borrow an iPad or something like that for this part of it? We borrow an iPad with that to you. This is going to let you kind of privately reflect, and then we'll take your reflections, and then we'll all kind of get to respond to those and decide what we want to say is top of mind for us as we embark on this work. Okay, so Laura, here you go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fraley. Thank you for zooming me in with the borders closed between our two countries. I'm trapped on this side, so missing Texas spaces and sunshine for sure. So thanks for the introduction. I'm really here just to add some value and kind of crowdsource some insights from the group of you as you sort of lay the foundation for this really important work as a community. So what Thought Exchange is really just a way to digitally scale important conversations so that they include everyone's perspective. So we work with districts across the country doing this on a range of initiatives. And when Alton told me about this work, I thought, I think we can add some value here as we sort of set the tone and the foundation. So really happy to be here. So essentially what a Thought Exchange is we're going to ask you an open-ended question. We're going to ask you to share a few thoughts digitally. So hopefully you all have a phone or an iPad or a device. So you'll share your thoughts and your perspectives. And then you're actually going to go through and you're going to read and rate one another's ideas. And what we're doing in that process is we're crowdsourcing. We're crowdsourcing not just what's on your mind, but what you've prioritized as a group as most important. So this is an audience participation process. In a moment, I'm going to share my screen. And I can't see you, which is totally fine. I can only see Dr. Fraley, but does everyone hi everyone. Oh, everyone's beautifully distanced. That's good. Safety first. Does everyone have either an iPhone or an iPad or a device that they can participate on, or even a laptop?
I think we do now.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen, and Dr. Fraley, can you just give me a thumbs up that you're seeing the QR code? Perfect, okay. So there are a couple of ways that you can enter a thought exchange. So if you have a camera on your device, you can hover it over that QR code on the screen, and a little link will pop up. You can just tap on that. If you don't have a QR scanner or a camera, then I'm going to ask you to go to tejoin.com, right here, tejoin.com, and then type in that 9-digit code. So I'm going to resist the urge to keep talking. I always try to fill the awkward silence, but I'm just going to give you a moment to either scan the code or go to tejoin.com, and you can put in that 9-digit code. If anyone's having trouble, just speak up. And in a moment, okay, I see 6 participants already, that's great. In a moment, my screen will come to life. You're being asked, what is top of mind for you as we embark on this important work? So really what we want to do here, this is a confidential process. Your name is not associated with your thoughts and ideas, but we want to crowdsource your perspectives, your ideas, considerations, concerns, questions that you might have as we start this work. So this is your chance to share what you need to share without your name being attached to it, and then to have your peers respond to what you've shared. So I'm going to refresh this one more time. Got 14 people in there. Is anyone having trouble getting in? Sounds like there's just a little bit of Wi-Fi. That's fine. Oh, 20 people, that's great. And I'll just remind you that this is confidential. you know, the thing about town halls and staff meetings is sometimes some of us get a little bit shy to stand up and say what's really on our mind, or you know, a question that we might have. So what we do in thought exchange is we give everyone an opportunity, even the introverts, to say what they need to say. So I'm gonna just refresh that. Looks like 23 people so far, that's great. I'm gonna start this timer here. We certainly don't have to keep to that time, but I'll just start that so we can see how things are going. 3 thoughts, okay, this is great. Now I'm going to move forward here to the next visual. There we go. If anyone needs the QR code again, please just let me know and I can switch back to that page. But this is great. Here you can see the graphics are starting to come to life as people are sharing their perspectives. And there we go. So this is a visual that you're seeing of this conversation happening in real time. After you've shared your thought, and you can share 2 thoughts or 3 thoughts if you have a few things to say, I'm going to ask you to move forward and start starring the thoughts of your peers. So the software will prompt you to do that. I can see we've got 8 thoughts shared. People are already starting to do some rating. That's wonderful. And I'm gonna, again, resist the urge not to talk through the silence. This is all very, thank you for sharing. These are all very thoughtful and well-considered perspectives. I'm just watching them roll in here. Okay. This is much more fun when I'm in person. I certainly miss, FaceTime with the communities that we work with. Okay, great. So take your time if you're still sharing your thought. We're certainly not in a rush here. If you have shared a thought, please move forward to the rating step. So the software should prompt you to go ahead and start starring the thoughts of others. So hit done sharing, and it should move you ahead, and you can start to see what other people are saying. You're basically being asked to assign 1 to 5 stars for each thought that you see, based on how it's resonating with you. So again, this is totally confidential. What we want to do is see what's most important to most people, not just what's most important to the first person to speak up, or the person to grab the microphone, but really give people a safe space to say what they need to say and to respond to their peers' ideas as well. So this is great. As you're rating thoughts, these thoughts are stacking here on the right-hand side, and the higher rated thoughts will rise to the top. Those are the ones that are resonating the most. This is wonderful. So in just a matter of 3 minutes there, we've sourced 39 unique perspectives, now 41 unique perspectives, and you've all had a chance to give feedback on those shares. So that's something that can take a lot of time if we do it in real time without technology. But really, what we want to do here is kind of get a temperature check and set that foundation for really what's weighing on your mind, what's weighing on your heart. I'm going to add a little bit more time to this timer just to ensure that everyone has time to rate the thoughts of others. So please do go through and try to rate at least 10 more thoughts. This is great. So another 30 seconds or so to get your final ratings in. Okay, so I want to respect your time as a committee. I know you've made time to come here tonight. Would certainly love to keep this going. I think what we'd like to do now is just maybe take 5 or 10 minutes and take a look at some of the top rated thoughts as a group. And I will say I'm going to close this exchange for now, but I actually might open it back up as we wrap up. So over the next couple of days, as you do sort of think through some of this, you can go back into the exchange and you can add more ideas, you can star more ideas. This can really be a living conversation that can continue beyond tonight. So I'm going to close this, I'm going to wrap this up. If you're sharing your rating, you're going to be kind of pushed forward to the end here. And then we'll just take some time. I'll ask Dr. Fraley to respond to some of these top comments, and we can, of course, open it up for some additional commentary. So 50 thoughts in about 6 minutes. Thank you so much. Those are 50 fresh perspectives, all very, very important, and you basically kind of organically prioritized those as a group, so thank you. So the highest rated, most agreed upon perspective that was shared was this one. It says, I want my students to have the best future possible. I want to ensure any decisions are made with a student-first mindset. Each child deserves the best the community can offer. So that's the thought that resonated the most with this group. So I'll maybe ask Dr. Fraley to respond to that, and we can certainly take commentary from anyone.
Okay, I'm going to sit here so I can kind of keep an eye on the question there. Anyone want to share out kind of what they think about this? Again, it was the highest rated. Anyone want to add a little meat on the bone of that comment? We'll get the highest rated.
Yes, if this was your comment, it was very highly rated, so would love to hear from you on sort of the spirit behind that. I'm always heartened to see a student-centric perspective rise to the top. And I think I heard you correctly, you're a teacher. So thank you for including your voice in this. It certainly resonated with all the other participants.
Laura Ball, next week, getting ready to speak over here. Comment. Prior to your joining us, as doing introductions, they all talked about pretty much this topic. This was top of mind. What is best for our community? What's best for our kids? So.
That's wonderful. So the second thought, very similar. I want to make decisions that are best for students. Putting students first should always be the first priority. So, very similar thought. Probably mirrors a lot of what was talked about in the first half of this meeting, and not surprising at all, of course, to see two similar perspectives being rated highly by this group. I'm going to move on to this.
Now, the challenge I'll tell you now is that you won't find many folks that disagree with any of this. But remember the guy standing, one saw 6, one saw 9? The meaning we apply to this may have a different perspective that we'll need to eventually get to. Does that make some sense? Someone else speaking? Okay.
Thank you. I love, so as someone who facilitates inclusive conversations for a living, I'm always happy to see a thought like this rise to the top. This is really at the heart of what we do about exchange. Listen respectfully to all speakers because all views are important. And I think this is so important. I say this all the time with the communities I work with the leadership teams I work with. Even if you're not going to change your mind, it's still worth hearing all those perspectives. Right? If you can contextualize your perspective in the broader picture, you've learned something, whether you change your mind or not. So would love to hear from the person who shared this thought. Thank you. I mean, I'm in diverse communities that are striving to be inclusive and representative of everyone. This really does need to be at the core of this kind of work. So I think this is an interesting thought. I watched it sort of hover near the top of the exchange, as you were rating, thoughts were going up and down. This one said, is everyone going to be open-minded and listen, not just hear? I'm so excited to see so many vested individuals from the community in the room. I want the meetings to be productive. I hope people can merge emotions with logic and facts and not rely on just one or the other. So thank you for sharing that. I would love to hear more on that and a commentary from anyone. Yeah, I love the simplicity of that. And again, I work with committees and teams and leaders, and they're like, oh, how are we going to do this? How are we going to know what to do? And sometimes it always comes back to like, well, we'll just ask them. We'll just ask them, right? So really asking and being willing to listen. I think when it comes to topics like this, people really want to feel heard. They want to truly feel heard. So yeah, really important. Thank you so much. And anyone else like to speak to that vein? So here we go. So a lot of similar thoughts. All views are considered. I'm very interested in all voices being heard, understood, and considered. It's important that we consider the implications of all actions. So, very, very similar to what was just shared there. Obviously, there are several of you who've either shared thoughts like this or rated these highly. So would anyone else like to speak to, this idea of people feeling truly heard? I always say there's a lot of research that supports this idea that when people feel they're heard, it's not actually about the outcome or the decision. It's about the process. It's about the process of feeling heard. They're more likely to feel bought in and included if they feel that it was this transparent process where they were heard. So I'm sure I wasn't in the first hour of this meeting. I'm sure that's a lot of what you're talking about, but I'm happy to open up the floor further.
We talk about putting students first, but what's the context of that? We can put them first in a lot of things. But what's the context? And that's the conversation I think we're talking about having, be it atmospheric conditions, be it what goes based in the community, and what experiences must we provide our children to help give them a role in making the community as we want to be.
So, and I apologize, I can't see if people are putting their hands up to share, so by all means, please don't let me cut anyone off. There are two, relatively highly rated thoughts here that I just want to touch on. One says we must be open and objective with no predispositions. I think there's a lot of challenge these are emotionally charged, contentious conversations, and it can be really tough to be objective. And this next thought talks about, additionally to maintain sound database decision making.
Hey, Laura, what is that, Laura? Like, when we look at building, again, civic architecture, it's how the town and the community as a whole feel about it, and what message it sends. It's what we're talking about. Now, whatever happens is going to happen. I spent 7 years here, loved probably 90% of the minutes, and I was an AP, I had some issues I dealt with. But it's how the town feel about it, how the citizens feel about it. Whatever the decision is the decision that you guys want to make, period. But it's going to be not just how you see it, but how the community wants it to be seen from beyond it. This was getting pretty rich, and I was enjoying it. So let's, another person over here, go come.
So I just, thank you so much. I really wish I was there with you all. I want to pull up this thought because it was highly rated, and to me this speaks to something that I talk about a lot, which is that you can build empathy in the process of doing this work. And whatever the outcome is, and whatever the decision is, if you've built empathy along the way, you've succeeded. So to me, I look at this thought and it says understanding. People form their perception from personal experience. Having open dialogue will help people understand where others with differing opinions are coming from. And this goes back to, what I was saying earlier, which is you might not change your mind. And you're certainly never going to make everyone happy. And I know that. I work with districts across the state on all kinds of things. You're never going to make everyone happy. But if you can create dialogue in the process and build some empathy by exposing people to one another's perspectives, and that's really what this thought is talking about, then you can make some progress, right? Whatever the outcome looks like, you can move the conversation forward in an empathetic way. So I really love this thought about forming perception from personal experience, having an open dialogue to help people understand where others from different opinions are coming from. So I want to just put that thought out there, and happy to have some more commentary, but I'm also aware of the time, so I'll...
Here's Laura.
Yes. So we've got a number of other thoughts here. There are a couple of thoughts that are kind of direct questions about will there be more than one facility up for renaming? I'm not sure if that's a conversation you've already had, but I'll just point out that there are two thoughts there about that. So I want to take a moment and I want to show you this word cloud. So we're looking at the back end here of an exchange, but it seems timely to share this. So this is a word cloud that you all just generated in that conversation. These are the words that showed up the most frequently as you were sharing your thoughts. And these larger words are the ones that showed up the most. And I just want to point out that the two largest words in your word cloud are community and change. Right? So that's really at the spirit of this whole networked conversation that we just had, and I'll be working with Dr. Frilly to close the loop and making sure that, all of your perspectives are in there. But when I click on community, it's heartening to me to see that this is one of the largest words in the word cloud, and that you are really thinking about the community as a whole. So I just wanted to point that out. And there are some additional tools here in the dashboard that I'll do a deeper dive with Dr. Fraley, but without showing you the details, I want to show you that there is some common ground. So you had some differing opinions on some thoughts, but there's this beautiful list of common ground thoughts where you came together, and they really were about including all voices and listening to all perspectives. So we'll just point out that this is happening in the conversation. You are hearing from one another. So thank you for participating. Do we want to look at a couple more of these thoughts?
Tell you what, I've asked her if she could create a report with these thoughts and get them to me, and I can share with the group, and so she says that she could do that. And then we can use that to have further conversations. I think this, folks, it can be a little anxious, it can be scary, but this is pretty rich. Someone said on here, we should have had this conversation years ago. Because going forward, whether we make a change or not, we have a better perspective going forward. But it's going to take all of us, the community, provide the best atmospheric conditions, learning environment, learning expectations, support systems for every student, every teacher working with them every day. It's going to take all of us. And if we're harboring any feelings, that is putting out energy. See, the energy that enables, or energy that kind of saps. And that's why we said we're not going to name call. We're going to listen, we're going to be respectful. And we may not see it the same way, but we do know that we're honestly intending to do good. What's best and what's right. That's what I meant by positive presupposition. Remember that word? I'll bring it back next week. Positive presupposition about everybody in this room. I heard your stories. I'm very excited about what we can accomplish here. And what can emerge is a stronger perspective about our civic facilities. That makes sense. Person over there.
Thank you so much.
Hold on, Laura.
Yeah.
Okay, Laura, we're going to let you wrap your part up, and we'll wrap things up here.
Sure. Thank you so much. I really wish I was there in person. Thank you for your willingness and your vulnerability. These are tough conversations. We work with districts having them across the country. The hardest part is you've already done it. You've already done the hardest part, which is to open things up, to share, to speak from the heart. So thank you for your courage, your vulnerability, and your willingness. And this conversation is happening in the world, right? It's happening whether you lean into it or not. So I just want to applaud you for leaning into this and for showing up tonight. And thank you again so much for participating. I will absolutely work with Dr. Fraley and make sure that this is shared back with you all.
Laura, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. That was big. Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate that. I want to take this back before we wrap it up. Again, when you change the way you look at things that you look at change. All right? And everything, you all came here with this. And no one can take those away from you. No one should disrespect those. We ask you to understand that your beliefs have implications for other folks. In the school, the community, the state. And so we put these beliefs in context of our shared aspirations. And if your beliefs facilitate attainment of that shared aspiration, awesome. If they inhibit it, we need to work through that and see if we can rectify that without discounting anybody. Very important. So we'll talk more about that next week. Depending on where you stand, and that's what you see. That's what you see. Okay, Laura's gonna, again, keep that up. If you still have that link, you can go back there and make some comments if you wish. She's going to get that report and get that to me. If she gets it to me in a form that I can, I'll get it to you guys, because I think some great perspectives were there. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. But you need to make certain that step is in the right direction before you take off. That's why we didn't begin with open mind, tell us what you think. You need to have some perspective and some context. So we'll come back next week. We'll have a couple of things. We'll select a chair for this group, kind of work with me and make certain we keep things going on time. We'll talk about a decision-making process up front. Before it becomes time to make a decision, we'll talk about how we're going to make that decision and agree with that decision so that that decision can be made, can stay. And we'll get further into the questions from the board charge. Maybe revisit anything else, we'll do that. So, well, I think that's a great point to end on, matter of fact. As we stay focused and true to the task, that's going to be my job. And I get to leave town when this meeting's over with. And so, I care about your feelings, but they won't make me stop the work. The board has asked a big ask. They made a big ask of you guys, a huge ask. And they're sharing that power with you to influence a decision that they make. Now, your safety valve is their decision. But if you let me give you the information, I can influence your decision. We will give them information. We'll have a process by which you can still communicate and share. We'll share at the time. We'll try to be, we'll confront the issues by each other. If it makes any sense. All right? Anything else?
Yes, just a couple of things. Don't forget to take your folder with you. Be sure to bring that back for the next meeting. Are we wanting them to leave the name tents here or please leave the name tents, and if you used an iPad, please just leave that. We'll come and pick it up from the table. Also, feel free to take home your facilities vision guide and read it in all that free time that I know you all have. The time is going to always be at 6 o'clock. Yes, ma'am. That's the goal, 6 to 7:30, 90 minutes.
Yeah, this first meeting we really had to get the introductions in place.
The next meeting, December the 8th, is it?
Tuesday next week.
December 8th. Yes, ma'am. December 8th is the next meeting, 6 o'clock, right here.
Thank you all.
They're always going to be here. Yes, ma'am. We're going to be as consistent as possible. Thank y'all so much. Please be safe.